The first thing I'm going to do today, I want to do a little house cleaning, because you should be going behind me verifying what I'm explaining to you and telling you is correct. But there's something that I did week before last, and actually probably last week again, is I used a word, and I realized that what I had done is I put two words, I put a word and a pronunciation together. And the word was led, and the word is ago, A-G-O. Pronunciation is A-G-W, whatever in the world that is. Okay? So, but usually I write down Greek word, and then I write down pronunciation. But what I did is I wrote down Greek word, and I put the Greek word and the pronunciation together. So when you go back and you go, wait a minute, that's not what he spelled out on the CD. It is what I spelled out on the CD, but it was wrong. You know, sometimes when you're writing your notes down and you go through and you read them afterward, you're like, great. And something else that you need to know. There's a site that I use frequently, and it's called godrules.com. And they have a Strong's dictionary there that I use with my phone and I use with my iPad when I'm studying, because it's faster. And one of the things that I've not relayed to you that I need to relay to you is I'm not only using the Greek term, but at the bottom of godrules.com, when they pull up the Strong's Concordance, they also show Hebrew meanings of these words. And what I'm doing is I'm looking at both and comparing them to give you the best definition for the way it's being used. Okay? So I want you to understand that's what I'm doing, because if you're going back and you're simply looking up the Greek word, you're going to wait. You're going to say, well, he said more than that. Well, that's because I'm also looking into the Hebrew definitions at the bottom. Okay? So I just want you to know that, so when you're going behind me, you're going, hey, wait a minute, where did he get that? And one of those was that God works on the mind when it comes to lead. He works on the mind through forces and thoughts in the mind. But that's how you're led to do everything. You don't do something before you think it. Okay? So anyway, glory to God. Now let me go back here. We've been talking about being undevourable. Being undevourable is simply being in the secret place of the Most High. It makes you undevourable, because you're under God's protection, and there's no way that a demonic influence force is going to be able to get through God's protection. Can we agree on that? Okay. We have a misunderstanding. We have a improper programming that we're having to change. We're going to have to change our personal code. Just like in a computer, you have a computer code that tells that computer how to operate under certain conditions, right? And you're going to have to go in and change your coding. We've been programmed according to the world system. Okay, the Lord's leading me to do something, so I'm going to do this. And I'm going to have to use me as an example. See, we realize there's incorrect coding when we have a problem. Okay, something's not working the way we want it to work. And what I've been able to do for me is I've been able to reduce that to the smallest common denominator. And what is that? That's God's word and how you're interacting with it. That's the lowest common denominator. So what I find is when something's not working, it's because I'm thinking about it incorrectly, which is causing me to not release it. If you're struggling with anything, regardless of what it is, whether it's pain, and I've been struggling with some of that, but I know that my faith is the constructing material that will end that. I have a misprogramming in my thinking that when I pray, there has to be a cessation of the pain immediately, or I'm doing it wrong, and that's not correct. So you're progressing to different levels, and you may not be at the level you need to be at. But the issue is, what's causing you to fail is you're looking at all your problems in a future context rather than a now context. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1, it says, now faith is. Faith is always now. Faith is not tomorrow, but now faith will affect tomorrow. Are you following me? And what's keeping this condition on you is you're looking at your today and projecting it into your tomorrow, which is not enabling you to release your problem. You're thinking that what you're experiencing now is the rest of your life, and it's not. The only life you have is not the rest, it's today. Are you following me? God said, live day to day. Live day to day. And I cannot stress enough how important it is that we truly understand that. Today's faith is not going to work tomorrow. But the faith I exercise today is going to affect tomorrow. Because what I do today is going to change the way I think, and changing the way I think is going to change the way I speak and what I believe, what I'm saying, and is going to affect my tomorrow. If you're continually looking to tomorrow to feel better because you're not feeling better today, whether it's health, whether it's finances, whether it's family, whether it's marriage, whether it's children, whatever it is, it's because you're hanging on to it. And holding on to the promise is you, for some reason, thinking there's some kind of lapse in your ability, the way you perceive yourself, or I have to do this, or I shouldn't have done that. And it's sometimes it shows up in frustration. When you get frustrated, you're hanging on to your problem. When you're wondering why God hasn't done it yet, you automatically, well, I know it's not God's fault. And we've been taught, I need to go look at me. Well, the Bible doesn't tell you to go look at you. It tells you to release your problem. God's not blessing you based on conduct. Well, I could be doing something wrong. Well, yeah, we're doing wrong every day. But see, we're free from the law. God is not attributing the blessing based on performance. He's attributing the blessing based on Jesus' past performance, which was perfect. You're going to have to learn to let go regardless of how effective you think you are. You're going to have to learn to let go. See, when you're able to let go, what will happen is God gets involved. He's able to move. He's able to change. What will happen, even with pain, what I've found, even with pain, is I get distracted doing something else, and I have forgotten about the pain. Now, it may have been for a short period of time, but it happened. And then it happens more, and then it happens more, and then soon you look up and you go, there's no more pain. Because you let it go. See, you're hanging on to it thinking, there's something I need to do. There's some medication I need to take that I'm not taking. Well, God doesn't necessarily have to use medication, but He can. Okay? But everyone who follows the Spirit of God, you are going to progress to where that's just not necessary. And you'll know when that time is. No one tells you. You just know. So faith is now. Faith is right now. Because all we have... See, we get out of here roughly at noon on Sunday. But noon isn't now, is it? Noon is the future, isn't it? And what are we thinking about? Well, I'm going to go eat lunch. This is what I'm going to have. See, your thoughts are projecting you into the future rather than living now. I believe you're getting what I'm trying to explain to you. Doing that is a problem. Doing that projects doubt and unbelief. Okay? Finances is another real good example. As you get older, okay, and let me give you a build up to that statement. We watch all these commercials, and I know my wife, she probably hates it. And when we're watching TV in the evening and all these drug commercials are coming up, and I'm going, there's another one. There's another one. There's another one they want you to take, and another one. Did you know the average senior citizen takes 13 medications? 13. And they're not getting any better. Remarkable, isn't it? Their symptoms may be better, but they're not being delivered from what's causing the symptoms. But 13 medications. You know how many I take? 0. None. Why? Well, I can't tell you that. because I don't want to influence you in any direction. Okay? But the reason medication is there nowadays, unfortunately, in our medical system, it's there to shadow a symptom but not cure what's causing the symptom. Okay? And what's happening is you start taking these medications and there's adverse side effects that cause another condition where they get you to take another medication, and the cycle just progresses. So who's benefiting from that cycle? Pharmaceutical companies. Okay? So what happens is, and are they evil? I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is when money gets involved in the medical system, in relationships, in anything, the love of it is the root of all evil. Okay? Car companies, good manufacturer. Lord, what are we doing? He just says, keep going. Okay. Car companies. Samuel and I, earlier this morning, we sit there and we're talking Ford, we're talking Chevrolet, we're talking Dodge. We were talking, was it Ferrari or... Anyway, one of the exotic car companies, and we were talking about different engines and problems that they've had, because I work in the car industry. And so we're sitting and we're talking back and forth on that, and he starts talking about the problem this one has, and like Chevy, they've had a problem with lifters because they bought pot metal lifters from China, and it's a problem. And some people are buying their cars and they're taking their engines apart, replacing these parts, putting them back together so they don't have the issue. And my question is, why buy the vehicle? Now, every manufacturer has these kinds of problems, though. Okay? So it's not like I'm calling out Chevy. I can call out Ford. I can call out Dodge. I can call out Toyota. And Toyota's having a real problem right now. Okay? Because what they did is when they bore and they cut out an engine, they used to have industrial commercial washers that go and wash all the metal shavings and things out. And what they did is, to save money, they run it through something basically like a dishwasher. And what's happening is they're having engine failures because it's not getting all the shavings out. So it's costing them millions to save $50 a vehicle. Okay? So what I'm saying is, what was the motivation for that decision? To save the money. So the money became so important, they were willing to cut a corner. Now it's costing them more. See, it's the same thing in your faith life. It's the same thing in your financial future. See, we're depending on the world system. We're depending on it to stay together. Aren't we? Yeah, we are. Because we're working there, we're getting paid through that system, we're being supplied through that system. But what's happened is, okay, I'll just keep going. I keep wondering, where are we going here? Okay, because I'm going into the food industry now. They're doing the same thing. They use something called hedonics. Do y'all know what that is? Okay. Have you seen on your packages it says, filled according to volume and not by weight? Have y'all seen that? Because it's there. And also they have best buy dates, because there is no expiration date, because this particular item just lasts and lasts and lasts. But what they say is, it tastes better if you eat it by this date. Okay? Now some have, like milk, trust that expiration date. Unless you want, ew. Okay? Or like my wife the other day, she made a sandwich and she was eating it, and she goes, the bread doesn't taste right. And she looked and she goes, oh. And there was a little bit of mold on it, so she threw it away. See, some things do have an expiration date. But the reason they put best buy, or they had an expiration date that was not actually accurate, they just assigned it one, is because they want you to throw that product away and then go buy another one. Right? That is the motivation behind it. Now, hedonics is, products are becoming much more expensive, but if you'll notice, your Little Debbie cakes are smaller. Oh, yeah. I bought some granola bars, and I went to Ray and I said, they're a third smaller. They still taste good, but it just don't last as long. And what it is what they do is they're saying, you're still getting 12 bars, but they're not telling you they're smaller. They're saying, you still get 12 bars. Now, when they're counting the inflation, the numbers that they're giving you, okay, Okay, I don't know why we're going here, but I need to just go. Okay? They don't count food. They don't count energy. So what are you paying the most for? Food and energy. But those aren't counted in those numbers. Now, they were in the 80s, but what it is they changed the rules to hide inflation numbers. But see, you can't hide that from the people because they see it every week when they go to the store, they write their check or use their debit card, they go, man, I used to be able to get 2 boxes of Twinkies for that. Now I only get 1 box of Twinkies. And the Twinkies are smaller. That's called hedonics. They hide inflation and say, well, you're still getting 12 Twinkies, but they're smaller. Okay? And what's going on in the financial system is it's things becoming more expensive. They hide inflation, and what they're doing is they're taking money out of your pocket. This is what's happening. Okay? Like they used to say, we want inflation kept at 2%. Did you realize that's a 2% theft rate? Because if money were still silver and gold, your dollar would be stable. Costs wouldn't change, retails wouldn't change. Because they're built on a stable commodity. Okay? You know, I've done this before, but if you took dollar bills out of your wallet, there's a 1, there's a 5, there's a 10, there's a 20, there's a 50, and there's a 100. Okay? But if you pull them out and lay them side by side, what's the difference in the value of those bills? Ink. Ink. One has a 1, one has a 5, one has a 10, one has a 20, one has a 50, and one has the number 100 on it. But they're the same size. So what makes one more valuable than another? Ink. Declared value. So what I'm saying is there's deception in every market, whether it's the medical market, whether it's the financial market, whether it's the agricultural market, whether it's in the automotive market. There's deceptions going on in all those markets, and they're all there to do one thing: increase profits. Okay? We can't rely on those systems. God is trying to transfer us out of the deception that's in those markets, and He's trying to move us over into the kingdom market. Now, the Word of God says, glory to God. Go to James chapter 4. James chapter 4. I'm able to get into the message now. And I apologize there. I may not have answered all the questions that you wanted me to answer, but we're going to keep going. James says something very, very interesting here. Okay? Now, before I read James, out of James chapter 4, in, what's that, Ephesians chapter 2, verses 8 through 9. The scriptures tell us that God's system is by grace through faith. By unmerited favor, you can achieve it by faith. In other words, you don't have to deserve for it. You can believe for it and receive it. That's the kingdom system. That's not the world system. The world system is earn and achieve, earn and achieve, earn and achieve. Okay? But in James chapter 4, verse 4, Paul says, you adulterers and adulteresses, know you not that the friendship of the world is enmity with God? Whosoever therefore will be the friend of the world is the enemy of God. Now, I've given you all, we've gone through quite a few things talking about money, and that's what the world is after. Money represents power. Money represents freedom in the world. It does. It does. It tells you what kind of car you're going to drive, what kind of house you're going to live in, what kind of clothes you're going to wear. Basically, in a lot of cases, how many kids you're going to have, Because I can tell you, owning kids, it's a racket. Oh, wait, I said that wrong. Going back to school. It didn't used to cost $300 per student to go back to school. But they know you need it. So the school system says, I need this, this, and this. And I realize maybe, am I a conspiracy theorist? No, but I know how the devil works. Well, who's making the rules that say I need that? When I went to school, We had number 2 pencils, Big Chief tablets. I remember I had one spiral notebook and a regular notebook, and that's it. That's it. That's not how it is now. Okay? What I'm saying is, well, they said, well, the education system has changed. Well, it hasn't gotten any better. Our reading rate hasn't gotten any better. We're what, 45th? We're in the 40s in mathematics. We spend more on education per child than any nation in the world, yet we're down low. Why aren't we asking questions about that? Why aren't we? Anyway, that's free. That's no charge. But God is saying here, that's the system that you're in now. But he's saying, I'm trying to pull you over into my system because God's making another statement. And we'll read about it here in just a minute. He said, you're in the world, but you're not of the world. In other words, you are in the kingdom and you're of the kingdom. You're only in that world, but that's not the operational kingdom you're supposed to be operating through. And our problem is we're operating through the kingdom. We're operating through medicine. And medicine does help in many cases. In some cases, they can't help us. Right? They go, we're sorry, there's just nothing we can do for you. Now, you can do this, you can take this, we can remove that, we can take care of this. And they do a lot of good. Doctors, hospitals, they're of God. But they can be manipulated by the world system. But the world system is blinded by the enemy. And he uses money as the motivation. It's the motivation for everything. Every business out here in town's got to make money. Did you know the largest small business in the world is the family? Do you know that? You got to bring in more than you spend. You can't spend more than you're making, right? You're operating just like a business. And what are you doing? You're regulating your purchases based on what you make, right? So the world has you trapped in this system saying you can only go this far because this is the amount of money you can make. See how that system can trap you? You can only drive this car. You can only make these repairs at this time. You can only buy at the Goodwill store or the secondhand store right now because that's where you're trapped. Well, God says, where I am in control of the system, he said, thieves can't break through and steal. The money can't be manipulated by printing billions and billions and billions and trillions of dollars because the more there is of something, the less it's worth. That's why prices go up, not because things are more expensive. It's because the value of your money is worth less. Okay? So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to teach you these systems, they trap us. We're trapped under the medical community that can sometimes help us, sometimes can't. But yet that system has become so blasted expensive. You know, years ago I had to go in for an MRI. And that MRI and the doctor's visit was $6,000. Wow. And I thought, did that machine like take something out while I was in it? You said hold my breath. And I was trying to hold my breath and be still. I didn't feel anything poking, cutting, jabbing. But for that kind of money, you should have taken something out or put something in. You know, it's expensive. I remember when my mother-in-law passed away, and I don't think Rhiannon will mind me saying this, that her dad got the medical bill from Baylor Medical Center in Dallas, and it was $300 and some odd $1,000. And she had had a leukemia type condition, if I remember right. Right. And she had been in there a month, and it was over $300,000. Wow, that's 10 grand a day. Okay? And she passed away. Okay? But her dad came to my sister-in-law and my wife and said, I'm going to have to sell the house and do all this. Now, he worked for EDS and Blue Cross and Blue Shield. And anyway, he got the bill, and Rayanne and my sister-in-law were going over it, and he was obviously stressed because he had put money back. He was going to have inheritance for his kids. He was going to have those things, and he said, I'm going to have to sell the house. I'm going to have to do this. And they looked over the bill, and they found out he owed $3,000. The insurance take care of the rest. But $300,000? Rayan, how many years ago was that? Now? 2003. 20 years ago. 300,000. What is it now? $1 million? Okay. So what I'm saying is you're trapped in that system. You can only get the health care you can afford. You following me? You can only eat the food you can afford. So what happens if what happens if your food supply ever gets tainted? Do you think it's tainted? Well, we're cutting corners. Dude, it's okay. It was only 4 or 5 rats in that Dr. Pepper. Now, that happened many years ago. And yes, those vats were cleaned, and I'm not trying to badmouth Dr. Pepper. But what I'm saying is people that are profit-minded, which means love of money, they're going to cut corners, and you're going to drink Dr. Pepper rat formula. Well, they can get mad. It happened, and I'm not putting them down, okay? Dr. Pepper, lots of people like it, you know. But you're going to tell me Coca-Cola, all these other companies haven't had issues like this? Of course they have. You just didn't hear about it, okay? What about all these food recalls where they're getting salmonella from this, or you're getting this particular disease for this, and they're recalling all this rice, and they're recalling this particular dates of flour, and what do you do if you already ate it? So what I'm saying is that if the food supply ever gets tainted, whether they're doing that now or not, you'll have to decide for yourself. Makes you sick, doesn't it? So it sends you into the medical system where you have to pay to get well again. Do you see the system? It's demonic. If it was working under righteousness, everyone would walk around healed. The food supply wouldn't be tainted. The water would be clean. But see, we're not in that system. But God says, I can manipulate that system. Well, how do you manipulate dirty water? Well, I remember when Moses and the children of Israel, they came onto a body of water and they needed water, and it was bitter, it was bad. They couldn't drink it, it was poison. God said, throw this weed in there, or this plant. Threw it in there, and the waters became sweet, and they could drink it. God can manipulate this system. Tax money had to be given for Jesus and for Peter. Now, Jesus had the money, but he sent Peter fishing to show him that he could supply needs without going into his bag. So the financial system can be manipulated, can it? He sent 3 kings from the east, traveling how long? 2 years. Said we followed the star for 2 years. See, the star appeared when Jesus was born, and they found him when he was a 2-year-old child and brought him the gifts. They weren't there in the manger. Only the shepherds were there in the manger. It said they found the young child, and it was a young toddler, 2 years old. The word in the manger is infant. They had searched for Jesus for 2 years. That's why Herod got upset when the kings didn't return to him and tell him where Jesus was, and he killed all the male children 2 years old and younger, because they had been searching for 2 years. We saw his star saying he had been born. Okay? So, Jesus manipulated that system. He sent an angel. He woke up Joseph, said, get out of here now. Take your stuff, get out and leave. He said, they're seeking the child's life. Got up and went to Nazareth. Went to Egypt. What I'm saying is God can manipulate whatever system you're in and whatever problem you're having by grace through faith. And that what he's trying to tell us is he said, you are so ingrained in the world system, it's controlling you and you think you're free. God says, you don't know what freedom is. Freedom is gladness. Did you know the definition of joy is gladness? A feeling or a state of well-being and contentment, cheerful, happiness, delight, gladness. Where it says the fruits of your spirit are love, joy, peace, that word joy there is gladness. Do you get up every day and you're glad to be awake? Glad to be here? Me neither. She said, not every day. Me neither, but I can change that. See, the reason I'm not glad is because I'm allowing a manipulation of the world system, and I'm not depending on God's system, which sets me free from this system. Well, we have to operate in this system. Whoa, back up. I didn't say we didn't operate in it. What God says, I've overcome the world. Anything you need, we'll pull it from that system because it's mine. The food's mine. Everything in this earth belongs to me. God says, me. It's mine. And I can put it in your hands because you're my child. And I can do it anytime I want, just because. But we're not receiving it because we still have a sin consciousness mentality that's keeping us from reaching into that system and pulling out what we need. We think we're deficient. We think that we're evil. We think that we're lacking. We think that God's mad at us because that's been our teaching. But that's works-oriented teaching. If you could do it right, Jesus shouldn't have come. The scripture says it this way. If righteousness has come by the law, which is the keeping of rules, then Christ is dead in vain. And he says, you're frustrating the grace of God. Because if righteousness has come by the law, Christ is dead in vain. It was a waste. So stop trying to qualify and understand you've been pre-qualified. You know, it's funny. You get all these mail-outs from all these card companies, and they're saying pre-qualified. And all your other cards are charged up. But you're pre-qualified. And you're like, hell, yeah. Now I can do to this one what I did to the other 5. I'll roll those over onto this one, and then I can go back and use those again. That's bondage, isn't it? But how many people are living that way? How many people they've gone from 3 meals a day to 2? Because it's happening. But God is saying, that's not necessary in my system. What if your job dries up? God doesn't need a job to supply your need. Does he? The children of Israel wandered around the desert for 40 years. I don't remember them having jobs. Oh, yeah, but they had cattle and they had this. The cattle had to be cared for. They had to be fed. They had to be watered. How many times did they come up and there was no water? And they said, or an enemy was coming against them, and they said, have you brought us out in this wilderness just to kill us? And what happened? Moses got so mad at him, he was supposed to speak to the rock. He struck it instead, but it still gushed out water to feed 3 million, to water 3 million Israelis plus their cattle. It came out of a rock. See, what I'm saying is we're thinking on such a low level, and God's trying to get us up on the kingdom level. Now, James chapter 4, again, it says, you adulterers. Now, I'm going to read this to you first out of the Jewish New Testament. Okay? Let me find it here. You unfaithful wives. Isn't that what a adulterer and adulteresses are? Unfaithful husbands and wives? But it says, you unfaithful wives, don't you know that loving the world is hating God? Now, God's trying to tell you something. If you're loving the world, that means you're working its system and you're ignoring God's. He said, that's like you're being unfaithful. He said, I've got another system. But what he's saying is you're trapping yourself in the lower system. That's what he's trying to tell you. Whosoever chooses to be the world's friend makes God his enemy. God cannot work this system. It's ungodly, it's demonic. And that's because the prince and the power of the air is the devil. So naturally the systems that operate in this world carnally are going to emulate him. Makes sense, doesn't it? God is trying to get us to this new level so we can be undevourable by these systems. Now, but what if there's no rain and there's no food? Have you ever heard of manna? Did you know the Jews ate manna for 40 years? Did you know that? And then they got tired of the manna and they said, God, we're so tired of this manna. And what did God do? He caused the wind to blow and it blew quail all into the camp. Oh, but you're God. No, he can't get that car payment, man. It's because you're thinking, and you're thinking low, and you're trapped in the world system, and that's why it won't work. Get out of that system. You're transformed by the renewing of your mind, by understanding this new system, that you're a new creature. There's new rules of operation for you that do not apply to Gentiles, and Gentiles just means without God. There's different rules for you than for Gentiles. Now, you can also be saved, but if you insist on staying in that world, you're going to be subject to that world. You're still saved. So, Lord of God, I've got to find that again. Or do you suppose the Scripture speaks in vain, that when you say, there is a spirit in us which longs to envy, but the grace he gives is greater, which is why it says, God opposes the arrogant, but to the humble he gives grace. Now see, grace can only work for the humble. The humble means that they stop trying to supply their own needs and they look to the kingdom. Matthew chapter 6, verses 31 through 33. That's what God is trying to relay. You live day to day. You don't live sitting on the can of finances that you have in case something's going to happen tomorrow. Because what'd you just do? You believed the hardship into your future. Faith is acting on God's word, is it not? So your faith action was get the can, sit on the can because there might be. Well, there's going to be because you got it and sat on it for that purpose. Do you understand? That's how faith works. And God is saying, if you want things to be free in the future, you've got to learn to live free today. If you want to be healed in the future, then you have to receive it today and let it go today. Well, how do I deal with this? How do I deal with that? That's causing you to hang on to it. But I have to deal. You're hanging on to your problem. For the last 3 weeks, and I know my wife has seen it, my attitude has been trying to change negatively. And it's not gonna happen. Yesterday was a really good example. Okay? My wife did not tell me that she was going to, her and Jessica were going to this craft thing because they don't always go. So I kind of planned my day around us eating and maybe doing some different shopping and things. Because when she got them, she said, well, I am going to go to that craft thing. She could tell my attitude changed immediately. And I said, you should have said something to me. I would have already been in town and had my shopping done. Because, guys, I got up at 6 o'clock. I vacuumed. I swept the kitchen floor. Fed the dog. Washed the dog blankets, which there are 2. Washed mine. Put it back on my chair. And then put in a load of laundry. You can't afford me, Ken. You can't afford me. Okay? I cleaned up the dishes. Then I went outside. I watered my plants because I have fruit trees. And I watered all my fruit trees. I dumped out. I've got a swimming pool for my dog because my dog loves water. And plus it's hot and she gets in it. So I dumped out all the old water, cleaned it out, filled it up, filled up her water bottle, pulled my motorcycle out because I was going to take my motorcycle to Yanni's shop here in Gladewater so I could get the oil change and all that done. But because of what my wife did, that wasn't going to be possible. And now the anger was trying to sit in, okay? And now we were trying to get ready to go eat, and I was resisting this attitude. And my old attitude would have been, y'all go do whatever you want. I'm not going. Right, Rand? And you could tell that was working on me, couldn't you? Yeah. Okay. Well, she's gone, and I sent a text because I'm outside and I'm putting the bike back in the barn. I didn't say any of this to her, which was improvement. Okay? Because I would try to make her as miserable as I could over it. I'm telling you. I'm no different than you. Hello? Okay. So I'm putting my bike back in the barn. I'll just do it next weekend. Right? But I go in the house, and I'm trying to get ready, and lo and behold, I'm sitting there, and I'm walking through the house, and I've already sweat through 2 shirts. So I throw that one off. I wash my hair again, blah, 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 put on deodorant, I put on another shirt. I start walking through the kitchen, and I go, oh, I stepped in some mud out there when I was watering the trees and everything, and I wanted to scoop it up, and I went, oh, that's not mud. It's human mud. Anyway, so, well, it actually is doggy mud. I stepped in a pile of doggy doo, okay, and I tracked it all through the kitchen. So I had to go pick it all up, and then I ran a text, and I started to tell him I'm not coming. I was starting to get upset, and I thought, you know, and then I picked up my coffee cup, jiggled it, and it fell over and spilled. And I was like, you know, my eyes are trying to roll back in their head. I'm trying not to swallow my tongue. No, I'm kidding. It wasn't that bad. But I was getting really upset. So, okay. And I called her and I said, look, I'm going to be late. Y'all just order. Don't wait for me, blah, 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 blah. And then in the back of my head, I was thinking, I'll just call them and tell them I'm not coming. I'm just not coming. So I get out the Swiffer. I get it all swept up. I get out the Swiffer. I got to mop the floor with a disinfectant. Hello. Anyway, so I mopped the floor, and then I had worked up such a sweat in the house, I sweat through another shirt. Because I was still hot from being outside, so I didn't really cool down. And when I get to moving, I'm moving. I sweat through another shirt. So I go, fine. So I go in the bathroom, I go into the washroom, and my wife has hung up some shirts for me. So I pull off 3 T-shirts, and there's stains by the collar where I was eating something and something got on there and the detergent didn't get the stain out. There's 3 of them. So what do? Fine. So I put them down. I could have screamed. There was no one in the house. I'd already put the dog back outside. Anyway, so I treat them all, put them in the washer, put my jeans in there, put the soap in, shut it, and start the cycle. I go, well, I'm going to be here. I'm going to get something done while I'm here. So I get in there, I got that done, they start to wash, great. I get in my truck, I start driving, and it turns out I didn't beat her. But none of the food was ordered yet. And then I thought, man, why didn't they order my food? And I get there, and no one ordered me a drink. And in my text, I said, I want a sweet tea. So it's working on me. But in the kitchen, when I thought, I'm just calling, that's it, I'm telling them I'm not coming, I go, oh, wait a minute. I know exactly what's going on here. I said, I'm going to the meal, and then I'm going to go do all my shopping after, which I did, because I wasn't going to allow the system to trap me that I used to live in. And it was trying really hard, has been trying really hard for the last couple of 3 weeks. But it doesn't matter, because I don't care. See, this life isn't all there is. And see, this meal is important. My kids don't live at home anymore. We meet to have this meal. It's my time to interact with them, whether we talk a whole lot or not, we're together. Now, we were looking at a bunch of stupid shirts on the internet, and we were laughing hard, you know. Okay, I was showing them stupid shirts, but some of them they were really funny. Some of them were a little, yeah, but they were funny. So, anyway, but we had a good time. So what am I saying? You have to renew your mind, and when it happens, you get to where you recognize the old system trying to come back in, and it's easy to stop it. Because you made the transition. You're in the right place. You simply say no to going back, and you've been in the right place. You recognize what the right place is. You're resting in that place, and that rest, the love of God, that rest, the love of God, that rest constrains you, and you're able to say no, and the confrontation stops. But I couldn't have done that years ago. I'd have made everybody miserable, but I didn't. It tried, and I knew they could sense it, but I got it. And is the devil going to try again? Of course, but it'll be even easier next time. It will be even easier next time. See, I'm no different than you. I'm not built any different. How are you coming to all these revelations, and how are you getting this to work for you? I just decided I'm going to believe it. And then when I find out that I'm messing up and it's not working, I find out I'm not believing it. And my problem is I'm holding on to it thinking I've let go of it. Letting go means goodbye. That's what let go means. Now, I'm telling you, it's what it means to me. It means goodbye. I'm not messing with you anymore. Well, I've done that, and yeah, but did you let it go? Well, wait, what? When you give it away, it no longer belongs to you. If it no longer belongs to you, you cannot affect it in any way. You cannot bring it to pass. The person that you gave it to is now responsible for the manifestation of that issue. Good or bad, they're responsible. God says casting your whole care on Him because He cares for you. That means once and for all, give it to Him. He's wanting us to once and for all go to this system, the kingdom system, okay? So I'm going to read you James chapter 4, verse 4, but this time I'm going to read it out of the Message Bible. I thought I marked it. So here's what the Message Bible says. It says, you're cheating on God. If all you want is your own way, flirting with the world every chance you get. Now, do you understand what they're saying? What God is trying to relay to you is, I want all of you. I'm jealous God. I want all of you, and I'm going to give you all of me. He said, you're flirting with the world when you try to manipulate the world on your own to get what you need instead of coming to me. That's what He's trying to tell you. Right? You follow me? Just say yes because you are. See, I pray about this. You're going to get it. When it's going to lock in, and it's going to come up when you may not want it to, but it's going to come up. And it's going to keep coming up until you latch onto it. And once you latch onto it, then you can begin to live in gladness. I have to get up in the morning fearing I'm going to get fired today. And there's no reason for that. I told Rayanne I worked my whole adult life married to her, excelling, everybody wanting me to work for them. And I told her I was afraid every day they were going to terminate me. Because I had low self-esteem. So you know what I did? What I'm doing now, let me say it that way, is I have Jesus esteem. I have Jesus esteem because I'm in Him. See, I died, but I'm alive, but it's Christ that lives in me. So I'm allowed Jesus esteem. I'm not out there trying to be self-righteous. I'm grasping onto what He's provided and believing it. And it's making me successful. Okay, so here we go. Find it again. It's remarkable. James is always in the same place. It says you're cheating on God if all you want is your own way, flirting with the world every chance you get, and you end up enemies of God. You using this system is going to cause you to be God's enemy. This system is God's enemy. The carnal mind is God's enemy. Works-oriented achievement is God's enemy. And when you're developing yourself in that system, you're automatically putting yourself against God because that's not His system. You don't mean to, but that's how it works out. God says, you're in the enemy's camp. I can't help you. You've made yourself my enemy by doing what you're doing. I've told you, seek first the kingdom and my righteousness, the right standing with me that I provide for you. He who has received abundance of unmerited favor and the gift of right standing from God, they reign in life. Right? Okay. So let's keep reading. So let me, you end up being enemies of God, and do you suppose God doesn't care? The proverb is that he's fiercely jealous. And what He gives is love, and what He gives in love is far better than anything else you will find. It's common knowledge that God goes against the willful proud. God gives grace to the willing humble. Pretty different, isn't it? But it's very enlightening, isn't it? Glory to God. So go to Romans chapter 8. Romans chapter 8. And you know, you can't be afraid to do things. You've got to stand out. You've got to show people that this works. See, I can now see the church full because I don't have to do it. I don't have to rely on me for the message. But I believe you're getting fed. I believe you can tell that when you get here. I know that I'm being fed. But I can see the church full because I see that God can do it. So I rest easy. I rest easy. In whatever area you find in your life, you can rest easy when you get God's promise. He's the same. Yesterday, today, and forever. There's no shadow of turning. He's not suddenly going to change his mind, put on the brakes when he said go. It's not going to happen. Okay? The gifts and callings of God are given without repentance. What's repentance? God doesn't change his mind. Okay. So in Romans chapter 8, verse 1, it says, therefore, there is now no adverse sentence to he which is in Christ Jesus, who walk not after the flesh, but after the Spirit. For the law of the Spirit of life in Christ Jesus has made me free of the law of sin and death. For what the law could not do, in that it was weak through the flesh, God sending his own Son in the likeness of sinful flesh, and for sin condemned sin in the flesh. Now, I'm going to read you a translation that's really going to open this up for you. Okay? Says that the righteousness of the law might be fulfilled in us who walk not after the flesh. In other words, the righteousness of the law is going to be fulfilled in you who do not walk after the law. See, the law deals with the flesh. They're interchangeable. See, the law of life in Christ Jesus has made me free from the law of sin and death. Right? We just read that. That's our context. So the righteousness of the law might be fulfilled in us who walk not after the flesh, but after the Spirit. So the law, the Spirit of life in Christ Jesus has made me free of the law of sin and death. Because I've moved over into this new system and way of living, I'm no longer subject to the law. There was a man that came up to a gentleman who was teaching on grace. He said, you're wrong. And he trapped him in the bathroom. You know, guys, please, don't ever trap me in the bathroom. At least have the guts to let me go to the bathroom. And then we'll come out and we'll talk. But he trapped him in the bathroom and he said, you're just totally wrong. You're just totally wrong. Because God says not one jot or one tittle of the word of God is going to pass away until all things be fulfilled. And he said, can I answer that? But let me finish. So he goes to the bathroom. They finish. He walks out in the hallway and the guy's waiting there for him. And he goes, you know, you're absolutely right in what you said. That's exactly what the scripture says, and it's true. And he says, so why are you teaching this message? Because you're only looking at half the equation. And the guy looked at him, what are you talking about? Didn't Paul say, count yourself dead to the law? He didn't talk about the lost. He said Christians are dead to the law. So it no longer applies to you, but it applies to the Gentile because that's their only means of salvation. And they're not going to qualify. The guy shut up and said, and walked away. See, look at your side of the equation. Yes, the law's there, but see, the law's not dead, but you are dead to the law. Right? Okay. Verse 5. For they that are after the flesh do mind the things of the flesh. Did you hear that? If you're walking in self-righteousness, trying to get everything taken care of, then you're walking carnally in the world's system. And therefore, you're subject to that system, and it's going to eat you alive just like it is the lost person. And God is saying, with the temptation, I've made an exit. I have a new system right here. Ready for you to operate in it. But you're going to have to renew your mind to it. The person you are right now, the things in your life you don't like, it's not going to be this way in your tomorrows. Do you understand? Stop projecting failure, sickness, disease, poverty, ineptness, hopelessness into your future. You know why people age so quickly and die so horribly? Because they're believing it, and their faith is working. And God is trying to switch you on to gladness. See, a joyful heart doeth good like a medicine, but a dry and contrite spirit dries your bones. What's in your bones? Marrow. What is marrow? The very place of healing for the body. The blood, it's essential for the marrow to be healthy, for the blood to be healthy. And the life of the flesh is the blood. So he's saying the stress, the pain, the frustration, and all these things that your brain is dumping all these chemicals into your body that you're having to deal with, they're killing you. They're aging you prematurely. This body lived over 900 years even after it was in a fallen state. Now we think it's great if we get to 80. God is saying the reason that that's happening to you is because you're not in gladness. Nehemiah chapter 8 verse 10. The joy of the Lord is your strength. You want strength? You're going to have to live in joy. You're going to have to transfer to this new system that supplies that joy that gives you strength. Is it possible? Absolutely. If you can believe it. I heard Kenneth Copeland say something one time, and I tell Rayanne this. I've told her this a couple of times because it just stuck with me. And they were talking about teeth, and he goes, "You don't think God can put new fillings in your teeth?" He said, "God will put granite in there if you can hold it up." Do you believe that? Well, you know, you got to go to the dentist. No, 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 no. The world has taught you have to go to the dentist. And maybe right now you need to. But there will come a time. Can God not regenerate bone? Because that's what teeth is. It's amazing how little microscopic things create what you see here. Your body. And all the intricacies of it. But see, the blueprint is in the seed. And you take a small little seed, you put it in the ground, and it grows into a huge tree. But it was just a little seed. But everything you needed was in that seed. Well, that seed is still in you, and it can be regenerated. God's done it time after time after time. Why hasn't done it for me? Because of your answer right there. You're thinking wrong. You're thinking the wrong kingdom. You're thinking you're trapped in this one, and you're mad because God's not supplying. But the churches aren't teaching us where the supply is. He said, "I'm going to meet all your needs according to my riches in glory in Christ Jesus." That means they're in my kingdom. Oh, well, I guess that means when we die, we'll have everything we need. Well, that's a true statement. But see, you've already been translated into the kingdom of His dear Son. You're already there. God said, "It's my good pleasure to give you the kingdom. I've given you all things that pertain to life, Zoe life, and godliness." All things. They're already yours. Well, why aren't they manifesting? Because we've been, I won't say that word, we've been dumbed down. Because our ministers have been dumbed down. Why? Because the devil joined the church and dumbed us down. Well, it's time to smarten up. Right? Okay. God, we're almost out of time. I've gotten through 2 verses. Shazam. Okay? All right. I'm going to read. God, which one was this in? Let me look at my note here. Glory to God. There's my note because I put it here. Read in the Message and Jewish New Testaments. It's right here. I found it. Glory to God. Okay, Romans chapter 8, which for some reason I did not mark. Seriously? Oh, because I was going to read from the beginning. With the arrival of Jesus, of the Messiah, and I'm reading from verse 1, that fateful dilemma is resolved. Those who enter into Christ being here for us no longer have to live under a continuous, low-lying black cloud. Interesting, right? A new power is in operation. The Spirit of life in Christ, like a strong wind, has magnificently cleared the air, freeing you from a fated lifetime of brutal tyranny and the hands of sin and death, at the hands of sin and death. God went for the jugular when he sent his own Son. He didn't deal with the problem as something remote and unimportant. In his Son, Jesus, he personally took on the human condition, entered this disordered mess of struggling humanity in order to get it right once and for all. A law code, weakened as it always was by fractured human nature, could never have done that. The law always ended up being used as a band-aid on sin instead of a deep healing of it. And now what the law code asked for, but we couldn't deliver, is accomplished as we, instead of redoubling our own efforts, simply embrace what the Spirit is doing in us. Those who think they can do it on their own end up obsessed with measuring their own moral muscle, but never get around to exercising it in real life. Those who trust God's actions in them find that God's Spirit is in them, living and breathing God. Obsession with self in these matters is a dead end. Attention to God leads us into the open, into a spacious and free life. Focusing on the self is the opposite of focusing on God. That's why he's saying you're becoming the enemy of God. Focusing on yourself is not focusing on God. God said, if you focus on me, and see, some people think that God has this great arrogant attitude and I've got to be number one. And that ain't it. God realizes he has to be one in your life or he can't get to you what you need. That's why you focus on him. It's not because he's some kind of narcissist. It's because he loves you and he can get this to you if you'll believe him. Okay? Focusing on self is the opposite of focusing on God. Anyone completely absorbed in self ignores God. When you're absorbed in yourself, you're ignoring God. You end up thinking more about self than God. And that's why you can't let stuff go. Okay? That person ignores who God is and what he's doing. God isn't pleased at being ignored. But if God himself has taken up residence in your life, you can hardly be thinking more of yourself than of him. Anyone, of course, who has not welcomed this invisible but clearly present God, the Spirit of Christ, won't know what we're talking about. Interesting, isn't it? We're focusing on the wrong things because we were taught to focus on the wrong things. It is of grace that it might be by faith, that the promise may be sure to everyone, to all the seed. Glory to God. We're going to have to stop right there. And I'm going to mark my place in my notes. So I got through 3 references. Nice. Glory to God. But we're going to talk about this again. See, this is how we keep from being devoured, is we get out of the system that's eating you alive. And we get into God's system, and God says, let's eat that system alive. You want to prosper and succeed? God goes, my favor will do it. But see, here's what we do. No, I need to do it because I need to achieve. And God said, what did the devil say? I will be like the Most High. I will do this. I will rule. I will control. That's not how this system works. And it not working this way is not a challenge to your individuality. You can't do it. That's why you're failing. Because that's not what you were created to do. You were created to depend on your Father like your children depend on you, and you supply their needs, and God will supply yours. That's how he built the system. You don't have to destroy yourself, and it's not a slight on you that God is meeting your needs. That's a ridiculous And that's an arrogant interpretation. Way too much self-importance. The devil is inflated with self-importance. But see, we need to be inflated with Jesus' importance. Healing stripes importance. Peace of mind importance. Energy importance. Regeneration importance. Kingdom of God importance. And ultimately, the constrainer. The love of God. It's up to us. It's our choice. But these things are real. These things are powerful, and they work. Stop worrying about what you're doing and let God do it. Don't get in the way. Stay out of the way. God's not looking for you to be totally awesome. God is looking to be totally awesome in your life. God says, I'm searching for a man so I can show him strong. It's not what he said. When he was searching for Abraham, he said, I'm searching for a man in whom I can show myself strong. Humble yourself under the mighty hand of God, because God does what? He gives grace to the willing humble. Right? Stand up, or I'm just going to get started again. Glory to God. I am so grateful to be learning what I'm learning. You know, you want to be successful in your job? Then say, God, thank you for blessing the works of my hands. You know what I need. You know I want to succeed. You know I want to be promoted. You know I want to make more money. That comes through you blessing the works of my hands and giving me favor in the eyes of God and man. So I let it go. And then just do your job. Trust God to lead you in any steps you need to take to do your job better than you're doing it. See, take all the responsibility off of you. Well, I have to. See, you went to I again. See, it's all about God. It's all about Jesus. It's all about the Holy Spirit. It's all about the kingdom. And God has been gracious enough to save us and adopt us into his family. Here we go again. Sorry. Father, we want to thank you for wisdom and revelation knowledge of Jesus, for expanding the borders of our tents, for opening our minds to understand. And Father, understanding to the very minutest level, so we